This video is for Aaron Parnas. If you're not Aaron Parnas, can you please tag Aaron Parnas? Aaron, ICE has detained a 5-year-old in Alaska along with his mother, his 16-year-old brother, and his 18-year-old brother. They have lived in Soldotna, Alaska for the last 5 years. They were arrested Tuesday night. The 18-year-old was put into our jail where the criminals are. And then the mother, the 16-year-old, and the 5-year-old were flown to San Diego, driven to the border, and deported into Tijuana, Mexico. The 5-year-old should be in kindergarten today, and instead he's in a country that he is not familiar with. Aaron, please do a video about this family and raise awareness about what's going on. I feel like our senator, especially Dan Sullivan, won't care, or Rep Begich. I feel like Lisa Murkowski may care a little bit. I've called all of them and urged them to speak out about this and demand that this family is returned here. They do have a lawyer. She did file a habeas corpus trying to prevent them from being deported, but they were deported anyway. It turns out they missed a court date back in January, and she thought it was in June. And they got a letter saying that it would be at least 90 days before anything happened. Their lawyer was trying to fix it, but they were deported anyway. Anyways, everybody tag Aaron Parnas. Aaron Parnas, please do a video about this family. We do not want ICE detaining children in Alaska, and it appears it's starting to happen, even though we don't have proper accommodations for ICE detainees in the state of Alaska. When people are detained in Alaska, they're put into our jails.
Hi, I'm not Aaron Parnas, but I would like to use my platform to elevate this story. I'm going to be reading here from a piece yesterday, Wednesday, February 18th by Liz Ruskin from Alaska Public Media. At the end of this, there will be an update from today. So the original story: immigration enforcement agents swarmed a Soldotna home Tuesday morning and took a family of 4, including a kindergartner, into custody. Sonia Arriaga, who is from Jalisco, Mexico, has lived in Alaska since 2023. Her husband, Alexander Sanchez Ramos, said agents arrived in about 5 vehicles and pulled her from her car while she was returning from driving her middle school child to school. I'm not talking about nicely either. I'm talking about aggressively grabbing her and pulling her out. You know, she's still in her pajamas, for crying out loud, he said. Sanchez Ramos is an American citizen born in Seward, Alaska. He said masked agents placed him in handcuffs as he stood outside in temperatures hovering in the teens, wearing gym shorts and sandals. They questioned him about who else was at home. A relative brought the youngest child out. He was upset. He was crying, asking for his mom. Arriaga has 3 sons, ages 5, 16, and 18, who were eventually taken to Anchorage. The oldest son was put in jail, while the younger sons and their mom were detained in a hotel. The story of their arrest reached a group of church leaders in Anchorage who told reporters that the case raised grave moral concerns. How could anyone possibly claim to support family values when they are willing to stand by and be silent when a 5-year-old is taken into detention, said Reverend Michael Burke, senior pastor at St. Mary's Episcopal Church. It's worth noting that in the last year, the Trump regime has taken almost 4,000 children, 4,000 children, and put them into detention camps, and many of them have been deported. He said an incident like this could traumatize a child for the rest of his life. Yep, we're leaving thousands and thousands of children traumatized. Children who've been abducted and put in concentration camps, children who've been deported, children who have to stand by sobbing and crying while their parents and their abuelas are abducted, and just the amount of trauma that ICE is inflicting on an entire generation of children is unconscionable. Burke said he isn't disputing the lawful enforcement of immigration restrictions, but he said federal agencies are trampling the law and violating the pledge that stepped-up enforcement would target criminals and the worst of the worst. It's never been about the worst of the worst, y'all. It's never been about the worst of the worst. And I shared yesterday how there was a woman in Minnesota who was going to the hospital with her 2-month-old infant. Her baby was sick with influenza, and she was going to the hospital to get care, and ICE abducted them, and they stuffed them into a Whipple in Minnesota. She was locked into a basement bathroom with her sick infant and another young woman. It's never been about any legitimate protecting Americans from violent criminals. It never has been. I think we're all aware of that now, or we should be. As faith tradition leaders grounded in the Hebrew scriptures and the gospel of Jesus Christ, we say that there is something deeply wrong here, the pastor said from his church pulpit. He was standing up with 8 pastors representing different congregations. There is a moral crisis in America when we detain and arrest families and small children. So apparently Arriaga was in the country working through the asylum process. To file for asylum in the United States, you must first enter the country file asylum paperwork, and that process can take years. She was facing threats of violence in Jalisco. She had a legal authorization to work in the United States. She missed a hearing in January, but her lawyer said, don't worry, we're refiling the paperwork. I think the person in the video said the same thing. She thought that it was in June, but it really was in January. And so her lawyer said, we're going to refile the paperwork and it'll be okay. And in the interim, she was abducted and deported back to Mexico in violation of a habeas petition. Her 5-year-old was dumped back into Mexico with her. I don't know whether they weren't taken to Dili because Dili is under lockdown for measles, and there's so much controversy about the inhumane conditions in that concentration camp in Texas. So I don't know if that's why they were expedited south of the border rather than going to a concentration camp where, these corporations that run these concentration camps can then bill the taxpayer for keeping people incarcerated. And it's not incarcerated, keeping people abducted and contained in I don't know what the word is for when you're imprisoned in a concentration camp. Sorry, it's like 11 o'clock at night and I'm struggling. I'm mad. I have a hard time finding my words when I get really mad. It's just, there's no reason for us to be doing this. It's all about money. It's all about evil, vile, greedy men making billions and billions of dollars off of an ethnic cleansing, off of traumatizing a generation of children, off of brutalizing innocent people who are here trying to make a better life for themselves. I think about my ancestors who immigrated here from Germany, right? They were trying to make a better life for themselves and their children in the United States. I guess it's fine because they were from Europe, right? It's fine because I'm lily white and my ancestors came in the 18th and 19th century. But if you came here more recently and you're not originally, your family's not from Europe, then you're a problem. You're a threat to people like Stephen Miller. Wild, considering he's descended from Belarusian Jews who were themselves refugees, who were themselves immigrants. Just the vile, I would say empty men, but they're not empty. They're full of hate. They're full of hate and greed, and that's what runs them. And all of the people who are willing to be their foot soldiers and do their bidding, right? Who are the men who came and abducted this 5-year-old and his teenage siblings and his mother? Who are the men who stuffed them into cars and kept them in hotels overnight? Who are the men who stuffed them onto an airplane? Who are the men that filed their deportation orders, right? When you look at what's happening in this country, it's not the men who have these awful plans like Stephen Miller. Those plans could never come to fruition without thousands and thousands and thousands of people being complicit, right? 10,000 ICE agents. I don't think they have that many. I think they have like 7,000 ICE agents. And then, 19,000 Border Patrol. Without people who are complicit and going along and being willing to do these awful things, it would not be happening. None of Donald Trump and Stephen Miller's vision, none of these crimes, none of this cruelty would be happening without willing participants. I don't know. I think about this on a daily basis as I'm reading stories like this, as I'm watching video. I just think $50,000. Is it worth it? Is it worth it? I couldn't do this for a $50,000 bonus. There's no amount of money you could pay me to rip children away from their families, to put children in concentration camps. I don't know how these guys look their own kids in the eye. I don't know how they sleep at night. I hope they are tormented. I hope their consciences torment them constantly, daily, nonstop. Okay, sorry. An update today from Alaska Public Media. Sonia and 2 of her children, the 5-year-old and the 16-year-old, were very swiftly deported to Mexico. Her attorney says they filed a habeas petition, but I don't know. The pastor that I mentioned earlier from the Episcopal Church said that the church down there has made sure that the family is safe in Tijuana, and that they are working with the federal processing folks on that side of the border to make sure that they get housing and that they're safe and that their needs are met. Because we know that ICE just dumps people. They dump people across the border. They dump people out of the Tacoma facility, out of Whipple, just onto the street. They often take their wedding rings, their engagement rings, their wallets, their phones. They have nothing, and they just dump them. So it's really important mutual aid work. It's really important community care to have people who are making sure that immigrants who are treated in this way are not abandoned on that end, that we care for them and try and in some way help them as best we can. So the 18-year-old is still sitting in a jail in Anchorage. He's in a jail. He's a teenage boy. I have a 17-year-old. I couldn't imagine having my teenage son abducted and stuffed into a jail. And we hear from the church that chaplains are trying to get access to him and see how he's doing and send news to his family. But that's where that stands right now. So if you are in Alaska, I really encourage you to call your elected officials. Do what you can to advocate for this family. Amplify this story however you can. This is happening all the time, all across America, until we stop it.